You're tuned in to Repco Muscle Garage, the home of New Zealand's toughest muscle cars, hot rods and street machines. Proudly brought to you by Repco, in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Rislone. Later, we take a look at an LS-powered VK that delivers on the promise of its Group C-inspired look. And return to Repco Beach Hop to check out a cool, clean Camaro, a long and winding 13 years in the making. But first up, thanks to Rislone, we're in Waihi to pop the hood on a small block classic with some seriously big punch. This supercharged 69 Chevy Nova SS. It belongs to Jamie Waugh, a man who's always had a passion for cars, and a passion for art too. And as it turns out, some inspiration from both worlds was the perfect grounding for this super tough blown streeter.
I was accepted to Whitecliff's art school. Mum and Dad had said to me, well, you can leave school if you get an apprenticeship. So I left at 15 and I thought, well, art, paint, cars is my thing. So that's where I put it together. I did my trade as a car painter and another 5 years as a tradesman, and I was painting hot rods and show cars and all the other sorts of things that we had to do in the shop. So that's kind of where it started.
Ironically, for someone who's often got a spray gun in his hand, Jamie actually started this build with nothing more than an engine in mind. So the Nova came later, a classic case of the custom cart before the horse. And he didn't mess around, going straight to a legend of engine building and drag racing, Mike Gearing, to create a small block that would keep the weight down, but still deliver an insane amount of street legal power.
I always had this thing where I liked the front engine dragster 60s type of look, and I've always wanted this blown car. So yes, we didn't have a car for it at the time, but I knew I had to get the motor built. Needed a motor at some stage, whatever I have. Mike Gearing had been someone that I had followed as a kid really, and I thought, right, here's my guy. So I got in touch with Mike and I told him what we needed to do. Myself not being an engine builder, I had to be guided by Mike. But I still had certain things and parameters that I felt that I wanted, and that was a small block, and it had to be blown, and it had to be a little bit nasty. Mike certainly did that for me. He spent a lot of time on that motor. I think he put it together and pulled it apart about 3 times. And it was I believe it was one of his last motors before his retirement. Yeah, I approached him with, this is the guidelines. But then I basically left it to Mike to put that together.
While Mike weaved his magic and got the engine cranking, Jamie set to work finding a body. He wanted a mid-size car and initially had something different in mind. But after finding a clean and tidy Nova SS, it ultimately became the perfect home for the small block Jamie and Mike had painstakingly put together.
Originally, we were thinking of putting it into the 32 Roadster, but it is a motor with a lot of personality. So I changed my mind on that. I thought I want something a little bit more solid, a little bit of a longer wheelbase. A Camaro, mid-size Camaro, 60s, 68, probably would have been my choice. And if one had come up and it was clean, then I would have taken that. But the Nova came up. It was a very clean car. It was all matching numbers bar the motor, and had very little miles on it from what we could tell. Like there was hardly any wear on the brake pedals. There was hardly any wear on the felts. It was really just sunburnt. So I grabbed it. The good thing I like about the Nova is it's lighter, and obviously with the small block combo we've got, weight saving was the other thing that I was trying to achieve.
Alongside Mike, Jamie roped in some other heavy hitters to pitch in, including the tuning prowess of Carl and the team at C&M Performance.
We've kept it at 400 cubes. We could have stretched it out to 427, but Mike had said to me, look, it's going to be pretty stout at 400, there's no need. It's got idle block Victor Junior heads, which are quite a good head for boost, but then Mike had spent a lot of time, he flowed those heads. It's got a custom cam, full roller, BDS airlock stage 2 supercharger, which is it actually pushes some air, and the fuel injection hat with the EFI, you know, and there's a computer under the dash, and Carl and AJ made a fantastic job at keeping a lot of stuff hidden. You know, all the wiring was pretty well tucked away. Being supercharged, it's very much on or off. It's extremely responsive. It's making over 8. Okay, it's been on the dyno quite a bit. That's on pump gas. We can put E85 in it and get some more power. On the street, it doesn't really doesn't really warrant it. There's really no point at this stage if we're just going to drive it on the street to put 85 in it. But for giggles, I think I might have to do it, yeah.
And with so much amazing work under the hood, Jamie wanted to make sure it was all kosher so he could make the most of the monster he was building.
When you get to the end of it, obviously, this thing needs to be legal. So there was a lot of thought put into that. The restrictions are quite tough in some ways. They're not hard to work with. And obviously the injection helps, no carburetors. Yeah, it went through with flying colours.
So there's lots going on with the running gear, but Jamie wanted to keep things pretty stock when it came to the aesthetics, with plenty of respect for the Chevy's heritage, from the exterior right through to the engine bay.
It was really to keep this one more nostalgic looking, to keep it looking like it came out of the factory. So that's why the Nova is painted in the original paint, and the underside's the original. Obviously we had the motor sitting there on the stand, which was lovely to look at, but I wanted to turn the key on it. So we got the car, I put on a rotisserie, I bare metaled the underside of it. We matched the black, which was the factory, because there was parts of it, such a clean car that I could actually match off. So we got all the underneath done. I got the engine bay done, the firewall done, all the parts powder coated, and then we just pieced it together. Carl at C&M and AJ fabricated the headers, and we got it running in that state. We've kept the interior period in some ways, and I didn't really want to cut the car. So we did a little bit of massaging under those arches. It's a good car to represent what it would have been like in 1969, but with a whole lot more giddy up. It was a well thought out package, a lot of help from Carl and AJ and you know, lots of people. You know, I think these builds, you never do it on your own. It's a manageable car. It certainly gives you a thrill, and it sounds good, and it just loves to rev. But I think I can compliment Carl on that, his tuning. Really, he's made it behave on the street. So that was the bonus of going down that road.
So there you have it, a super tough classic, but with all the performance bells and whistles required to hit the strip if the mood takes him. Sure, it was an unusual journey at times, over 5 years no less, but one that was ultimately well worth all the twists and turns, fueled by a lifetime of passion for all things automotive.
It is very much an achievement to turn that key, go for a drive. Everyone needs something. You need a passion. I've always wanted a hot rod as well, and it's just, I remember going for a ride in a 32 when I was a kid, and I could just smell the fuel off the carbs and the wind in your hair, and I thought, God, I've got to have one of those too. It's everything hot rod. I have to have a hot rod. So, you know, I'm glad I've got that too. It's a nice car.
Next up, with a little help from our mates at Maguire's, we're returning to Repco Beach Hop. With everything that goes on over Beach Hop's 5 jam-packed days, it's actually hard to fit it all in, regardless of whether you're there or making a TV show about it. So over the next 2 weeks, we're revisiting a few interviews from Beach Hop 22 and 23 that we couldn't cram in until now. First up is Paul Myers and his amazing Camaro, which it's fair to say was a long time coming, but definitely worth it in the end.
It's a 1969 Chevy Camaro. Yes, it's been a 13-year build. We bought it thinking that we could have it finished in a short amount of time, but it hasn't come that way. It was something that I shouldn't have bought, but we had started it, we brought parts, so we carried on. Yeah, I had a look around and looked for different cars. Had a bit of input from Claire, my partner, and she said, we're not having a Holden. We've got to have something with a bit of notoriety. And we decided, yep, we liked it. We looked at them for a while, and that's what we brought.
When Paul picked up the Camaro all those years ago, it was in a bad way. But there was a silver lining, as it basically gave him and Claire a golden opportunity to take things back and start from scratch with a new vision, sparked by some work that caught their eye coming out of the Motor City.
We could tell how bad it was once we pulled it apart before it went for dipping. But we thought it was only a few panels, but it ended up being a lot more. We looked at it and said, we've got to do it right. So it doesn't matter how long it takes, it's got to be done right. So we persevered and got the right people on the job and chose what way we wanted to go with it, and we just carried on. Yeah, I've been looking on the internet, and I like the way that Detroit Speed and Engineering in the States build their cars, and we chose a lot of Detroit Speed stuff for it. We had the motor and box within the first 3 months that we bought the car, so we knew we were going LS and 6-speed. So we didn't really change too much, and the major thing we changed was colour. When we bought it, it was originally a manual car, so I said that it has to stay manual. So we looked around for a LS, and we found a LS2 that came out of a written-off car, done 35,000 K. And then we did a cam, intake, cold air box, pipes and everything. Then we've done a Detroit Speed front suspension, upside down coilovers, tubular A-arms, a 600 series steering box with a Hydrotech braking system. And then we've put a Moser True Track LSD in the back, mini tubbed it, and just left the leaf springs with QA1s in the back, and that's how it sits.
So it was a painstaking mission to get there, with plenty of stops and starts. But this seriously clean piece of work definitely caught people's attention, and it's not hard to see why.
The atmosphere and just the places that we go, and the people just look at it, and yeah, it just stands out, and yeah, and the comments are great. The first true test for it was in September, just gone. We decided we'd go to Kaikoura Hop, and so we packed up the family and filled up the boot with luggage and went to Kaikoura, and a month after it was on the road. And it went really well, and lots of positive comments, and yeah, it was really good.
Protection of hybrid ceramic.
Whoa.
Now in 3 easy-to-use products. In original spray wax, now as a liquid wax, and a spray detailer. Meguiar's hybrid ceramic family with advanced SiO2 technology. Meguiar's, ceramic made easy.
Rizlone has been in engines almost as long as engines have been in cars. Why? Because from then until now, there's never been a perfectly clean fuel. This means every time you fill up, you're adding pollutants and contaminants to your fuel system. Rizlone Fuel Injector Cleaner can cure those woes and help save your engine. Rizlone Fuel Injector Cleaner adds an upper cylinder lubricant, providing double the cleaning power out of the same bottle. We know something about aging well, so when we say it's your engine's fountain of youth under a screw top, you can count on it. Rizlone is the original engine tune-up. Available at participating stores near you.
Welcome back to Repco Muscle Garage. Now, courtesy of the Mount Shop, we're in South Auckland to meet Peter Hemme, the owner of one seriously slick and seriously quick 80s Commodore classic. There's clear Group C touring car inspiration here, which isn't that surprising when you learn that Peter originally made his mark as a bit of a name on the speedway racing scene in the 80s and 90s.
I sort of started Speedway when I had a workshop up in Oniwero. A guy drove in this thing. It had an engine and 4 wheels, and I said, what the heck is that? He said, it's a modified. And I said, what do you do with that? And he said, I race it on a dirt track. So I did a wheel alignment. Off he went, thought nothing more of it. And then he brought it back to do it again. He had a crash. Okay. He said, come down and have a look. And it was down at Merrimeri Dirt Track, bundled the kids up in the car, and off we went. We sat on the hill and watched this. And I thought, this looks like fun. So I went down and saw the guy. Says, go and pay $2 to get a cross on your hand, you can come for a ride. And that's where it started. 20 years of Speedway.
Beyond the dirt track, however, Peter's also had a lifelong love for V8s. So it's hardly surprising that his VK is every bit a street race car from the inside out. Under the hood, there's a monster LS that produces over 560 horses at the wheels. And it's complemented by a Group C-esque exterior that's definitely a statement of intent.
I've always been a Holden man. mainly because I just love the brand. You know, a lot of my mates and stuff have all got American, and you know, they all give me a bit of stick about it, but you know, it's an Aussie built car and it's different. The Commodore, which you see here, is sort of the Holden I fell in love with because I just loved it as a race car. Yeah, I think it was 84 they first started the Group C. There was a progression in the Australian racing car scene, and I just like the fat look of it. You know, the big wheels, the flares, and even the dirty old Ford that was involved there, they look pretty cool.
This particular era Commodore had been in his sights for a while, and after plenty of searching, Peter thought he'd hit rust-free pay dirt.
I started looking for something like this for quite a while, and this turned up on Trade Me in Cromwell. Young guy down there had it. I'd seen quite a few were pretty rusty. Rang him, he said, no, my old man bought it brand new, there's no rust in this car. So we flew down, had a look at it, and there was rust. But I made him an offer and said I'll take it, so we drove it home, all the way from Cromwell.
Given his racing background, Peter's pretty familiar with high-performance small block Chevs, but decided to go down the LS route for this particular build to strike the right blend of power and weight distribution.
I was originally going to put a Chev motor in it, but it's a pretty heavy engine, and to put it in the front of this car would probably unbalance it. After, you know, when you've raced cars, you learn about front to rear balance and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, well, we'll go down the LS route, and that's why we went with, it was always going to be a big engine, because I ran a 430 cubic inch small block in my race car, and it made 800 horse, so this was going to be nothing smaller. So yeah, we bought that, and then, you know, good strong diff in the back, and suspension wise, it had to handle. It couldn't be a pig on the road, it had to handle. So with all that power, it needed to stop, so we've got good brakes. When I first saw a guy about tuning the engine, because the engine came tuned, it came from a dyno run, he said the air and the fuel's probably different, so you'll need to just run it through and see what it's doing. And he said, what is it? And I told him what the engine was. And he said, oh, you're gonna put a roll cage in it? I said, I don't plan on tipping it up. And he said, no, to hold it together. And I says, oh, I hadn't thought about that. He said, I've seen cars, VKs or Holdens like this, with smaller engines actually twist on the dyno. So I thought, crikey. So I built a whole chassis under it. It's got chassis link rails all through the middle and strengthening, and yeah, tighten it up real good.
And obviously beyond the chassis tweaks, Peter was also going to need a serious braking setup to harness the grunt, including massive 330mm discs all round.
It's XYZ kit, which is your front struts, shocks, calipers, rotors. Same with the rear. 6-pot calipers on front, 4 calipers on the rear, 330mm rotors all round, so it does stop pretty good.
Take one look at the VK's detail and workmanship, and you quickly realise the time that's been put into this painstaking 8-year build. And some of that comes down to COVID's arrival in 2020, which despite the lockdown dramas presented a silver lining for Peter, allowing him to apply some laser focus and get things where he wanted them.
With COVID, I guess, yeah, it was good for me in a way that I managed to work on this car non-stop. It had been painted, and I had it mounted across the shed here, and I had junk all around it, and I had everything here to do the car. Like, I got up at 6 and left and went in at 6 for dinner and then backed it out at the end. It's the sort of thing that you need to get in, and it takes you half a day to get your head around what you're doing. And once you get in, you're going.
Thanks to plenty of years of engineering practice from his racing days and a pretty respectably appointed workshop, Peter's done practically all the work apart from the paint and the upholstery.
I've done the work myself mainly because I like to do it. You know, I just like doing that stuff. I built all my own race cars, nutting it out. How is this going to work? How am I going to make that fit? At the end of it, when you drive that car, it makes it all worth it. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it right. You've got to try and do it to the best what you can do, you know. You tend to look at what other people do and say, oh, how did they do that? And you have a good look and work out how you can do something similar or whatever, you know. It just, you can work it out.
It's clear no corners have been cut here, with a heap of amazing features and lots of small details and effort applied to get things looking perfect. You can practically see the hours spent making the fiberglass Group C kit fit like a glove. or the shaved and smoothed engine bay that's been wired and trimmed like a high-end show car. But first and foremost, what Peter's created is all about high performance, although it hasn't had any real action yet.
I haven't been near a track. Don't know whether I'm too scared to or not. Because I think it'll probably surprise me what it can do. Like the first time I ever drove it, I went down here and went along the road, and I thought there's only one way to find out what this has got. I took off in first, hit second, nailed it, and holy shite. Hit third and it went worse. I had to get out then. I came back here and I was like this. So yes, I think I need to do it properly, I need to go to a track, and I'm pretty sure it'll go pretty good.
So as you'd expect from a driver with Peter's credentials, the Group C kit isn't just for show. This is a car with serious get up and go, and that's matched by an obvious commitment to a quality finish on every last detail. All adding up to a package that's made its owner a pretty happy camper.
Driving it, I get a grin from ear to ear, knowing that I've done it. You know, pretty much 90% of it is me, so yeah. And driving it, the grin gets better.
Feel like your car could do with some TLC? Well, thanks to our series sponsors, we could be hooking you up with this incredible prize pack. For a start, there's a huge Maguire's and Rislone complete car care pack valued at over $760. We've also thrown in this unbelievable Mech Pro Blue 248-piece toolkit with 3-drawer chest valued at $566. To stay on top of everything underneath, there's a $500 mount shop voucher. And last but not least, you'll also score a year's subscription to NZ V8 magazine. That's a total prize pool of nearly $2,000. To enter, just head over to nzv8.co.nz and hit the Muscle Garage link on the homepage. The winner will be drawn at the end of the series, so make sure you get amongst, because this prize pack is one major haul. Good luck. Repco Muscle Garage was proudly brought to you by Repco. It starts with the parts. Mount Shop Undercar Specialists. Maguire's, people who love cars love Maguire's. And Rislone, high performance additives for high performance vehicles.